Hi, my name is Candy and this is my altar. Here I pull cards, I pathwork, I meditate, I commune, and I soak up all that magic offers. This space fills me up and heals me, and it's this that I want to talk about today. In fact, I want to talk about just two elements, the cards and the candles. You can see that the candles are important to me. I choose their shape or their number or their colour or their holders to be symbolic on my altar. So when I saw this knot candle, I knew straight away it had a story to tell. For candles often are portals to stories that melt their narrative. For a number of years I felt stuck, locked in the hurt from the past, tangled up. I wanted to untangle. I wanted some advice on how to do that. So I went to the altar and I meditated on that question, and then I lit the candle. I closed my eyes and listened, and sure enough a whisper came. "See, this is how you got here," the whisper in my head said. "This is who tied the knots." I opened my eyes and saw that the candle had developed what looked like a phallic appendage dripping pain. And sure enough, the last two relationships I'd had broken me, tied me in knots and tangled my soul. This was indeed a big why, and I wasn't surprised to see it. "But what about everybody else?" I replied. One person was in my mind, one person that had done more damage than anybody else. A woman with hair continually over her eyes. And as I continued to watch the story melt, she appeared with a long fringe hanging down over her face. It was all here in the melting wax. How had I ever found the strength to survive these people, I wondered, as the wax ran off onto the table. But then I remembered the shape-shifting story of the weaver's card also sitting on my altar at this moment, that talks of Long-Braid Yida, who was a stone-born woman. She knew the nature of rock. Within that story, we are told time and time again that Long-Braid Yida can knot different stories together to find answers and strength. She knots the sea to stone, she knots the stone to sky. Here is a knotting that forms strength, not destruction, and internal power. And there my first answer in that melting wax. Remember, you have the strength of stone within. You've got this. I looked at the melting wax and then turned to a stone that I'd picked up to hold during this meditation and couldn't believe my eyes. The melted wax had landed on my desk, mirroring the circle and three-line pattern within this randomly chosen stone. Then I looked again at the wax and I saw a dragon fire its long snout and head. I watched as the melting wax became a plume of fire shooting out of the dragon's mouth. I'd always resisted working with the element of fire, even though I'm a double fire sign, until the dragon came in, a recent call to work with dragon energy. This was confirmation again that I was on the right track, even though I was still reluctant. A recent meditation had told me I came from a line of cruel fire witches, which is why I always wanted to work with water. As a circle breaker, I was continually trying to put out the fire to protect my children. And then I saw it, the dragon's heart protecting 3 eggs. Can you see that just there? My 3 kids protected by the strength of the dragon. But what about the call to work with water? And then I saw it, a mermaid's tail forming around those eggs. There is a call here for me to use water to put out fire, but never to forget that I am also the dragon. Now a dragon with an inner strength of stone. The wax was reminding me what this journey had forged me into, something stronger than the people who tried to destroy me could ever realise. Sometimes when you look back and realise the strength that you've formed, it makes you realise that those knots have been gone actually for a long, long time. This was an aha moment for me. Those people which once loomed so large over my life have been reduced in comparison to my gained strength to nothing. So I reached for my first deck, a deck that was calling to me to gain confirmation of this, and look at the card I pulled, in search of bigger fish. The new day dawning like the candle burning, with a fisherman standing in the waves. The fire of a new day on a cliff, the falls cliff to jump off and begin again. Standing in water, the melted wax becoming the ocean that the fisherman was standing in. And the fish had indeed become too small to be concerned with anymore. It really was time for a new day. Not because I was broken or needed to try harder, but simply because they weren't worth my attention or effort or energy anymore. There are bigger fish to find. There is magic in this world. There are kind people to interact with. There's love and learning and life to share. This was another aha moment. I wasn't broken after all. I wasn't tangled. I just needed to find my own new wonderful things to knot into my life. The shape of the candle now had begun to look like Mother Mary, a sort of Madonna and child. I wondered whether it was representing me and my children, or was it actually Mother Mary? So the second deck I reached for was my Mother Mary Oracle, and I pulled a card from this that had the most glorious message. The message read, "The heart recognises when something has run its course. In letting go, you create a powerful, consciously chosen sacrifice that stimulates the birth of what needs to happen next in your life. Honour what is unfolding, even if it involves the pain of loss. You have the capacity to experience a sacred connection with life as you honour the endings that are a natural part of life's endless creative expression." This was jumping off the falls cliff in search of bigger fish, alongside a acceptance that life does change, which is something I'm facing as my children get ready to fly the nest. And then a sudden surge of wax caught my eye. I think this is a candle story's way of catching your attention, drawing your eye to the next part of the story. So I watched this corner and watched the wax began to ooze, forming a moon shape, and then I realised it looked like a person sitting staring out of the moon. This was the other card from my Weaver's Oracle pull that again is on my altar. look at this, there it is, there is the person staring out at the moon, and the message to contemplate. It's really bringing my attention to the importance of that reading. Contemplate where you're going to shapeshift moving forward now. What things do you want to knot into your new life? I moved the stone back across to the wax, almost wanting a hug, because I was thinking about my children leaving and the new life I'll have to forge for myself. This has all been on my mind for a while anyway. And then in amazement I watched as the wax came down to form that hug that I wanted around the stone, and the whisper of, you have the inner strength now. You've been forged through life for this. I think this was just such a message about trusting my own inner strength, that it will be okay. This little piece of wax brought me to tears. It was just so amazing. It really did feel like Mother Mary pulling me into her lap again. Everything was coming together to form the most gorgeous message of trusting inner strength, which is what I really needed to hear. I was loving this message so much, I also grabbed some crystals. You can see I placed them around the candle. I just wanted this message to soak into some other tools of mine so that I could hold on to the message and the energy of this candle spell activating. I glanced away to look at my Dagda candle and my candle for my Celtic deity, and when I looked back, this had happened. I really thought that this was the most incredible representation of my children leaving home, and the comfort that this brought me when I looked down and saw that they hadn't broken totally away from the main body. They were still firmly joined at the base, and look, they'd landed on magic. The piece of candle had landed onto the quartz crystal. It was almost as if the candle story was saying that I'd filled my children with so much magic it would stay with them, and because of that they would never truly leave me. Again, this was the most beautifully comforting message that I needed to hear in this time of transition. I'd poured so much of myself into my children, just like this candle pouring its wax out, that it is quite fear-inducing to feel like they're leaving, but we will always be joined even when distance parts us. And then finally, having watched individual elements of this candle melt, I then decided to look at the whole picture, the upright candle left standing, the melting wax and the stone. And it really struck me the similarities between this oracle card image and this. We have the burning candle at the top being representing the sun, then we have the melted candle wax looking like those hills, and then a sea underneath. There was very similar elements in the shape here and the image I was seeing in the candle. And what was the stone? I suddenly realised that the stone was in the position to represent the fisherman's bag. What was in his bag? The stone was asking me, what am I going to fill my bag with? What tools have I got? What is my personality? What skills do I have to bring to this new world that I am going to create for myself? The big picture was as fascinating as the little elements of it all, and I just loved every second of this candle spell with tarot and lots of other tools as well. So that's it. That's an example in real life of using candles and cards together. Just some ideas for things that you might include, things to look for, ways to set up the candles and cards meeting, and an example of how I interpret a candle melting. I hope that you found that interesting and give it a go. It is sometimes really incredible what happens. Thanks guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.